Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday, everyone. How is everyone doing on this quiet summer Friday trading so far? After a busy yesterday, busy Tuesday. So let's see who's here. Ramsafal, good morning. Good morning, Patrick. Happy Friday morning or something like that. Well, what else would it be? It's a happy Friday in the summer. Hey, hey, Waka Waka, good morning. Happy Friday to you too. Options 22. Bad data and market still positive. Which are you referring to, Waka? My man, Money Mike live and by your side. Money Mike. You guys are funny. You make me laugh. Good morning, Jacob. Good morning, Andrea. Thank you. You're becoming a regular. I really appreciate that. I appreciate everybody who's here, who spends time to tune in with this community every day and get through the market prep. Again, hopefully the new temporary streaming solution will hold up. Just still fine tuning it. Again, if you are new here, please do consider subscribing, ringing that bell, and hitting the like button. Longer term subscribers, leave some comments like you've been doing and like the videos. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's prepare for a Trading Friday. Just overall economic and Q2 earnings. Well, American Express. Wow, American Express. That they had a beat. Oh, don't move around my. Don't move. That's from yesterday. Or that's from no. This is from this morning. Twitter was a miss on revenue, but a beat on daily users, and that would be, I don't think they're going to mess with that number going into a potential merger. So that's actually interesting. That shows platform growth, but they did miss on revenue. Amex was a huge beat. Not up in the charge off amounts, everything. So from Amex perspective, consumer still strong. Verizon was a pretty decent miss, and remember, communication sector has been very weak. So that's where we sit with that. Let me minimize that now. Come on. Sorry, things are a little slower when I click just because I'm really taxing this setup a lot. We have the S&P July flash numbers out this morning, 15 minutes after the open. So please do not ignore that. I'm going to watch, not necessarily if they miss, but if they miss, how close they get to 50. That's going to be key. And then the rest of the day is quiet, besides unless you're trading some crude, the rig counts. S&P 500 maps. Google down, still reacting to snaps stuff yesterday. Facebook still reacting to that, but everything else flat. Tesla up slightly, still reacting from that. A lot of gamma juice yesterday. The 75 basis points still baked in, and we are pretty much in neutral territory. This is still off a bit. We're right up there, really. So, where do we sit? Good morning, Davey. Good morning, Anissa. Thank you for being here. Amex a beat with so many consumers using credit. Yeah, but they don't have the charge-offs going up. So watch for that. Good morning, John. That's going to be key, Ramsafal, to watch with their next one to see if we start getting more credit charge-offs or defaults. All right, that's what's key. So people are still, they're relying on their credit cards more, and that's good for Amex earnings. Again, it popped up. AXP, you see here, pre-market. You still have a couple gaps to fill, but what's interesting is we filled this gap with a gap. So I'm going to be watching when we get the next market pullback. I'm going to be watching for the rollover play, but the next target to the upside is this gap fill still left from the 9th of June, this gap down, and that would be 160.98. Also, you remember what's always handy to do is put the harmonics on to help tune stuff. So see, we're back above the 62.5. So if this holds on a closing basis, then you should still favor some higher price push even with a pullback. All right, let's get to the S&P. The S&P, very narrow range so far. Quiet trading overnight. Do we have anything of importance going into the open? Well, let's just see. That does qualify as a double. I'm just going to put on the aggressive targets right now. I will, because we don't know if this is going to push up more into the open, but I will switch to the conservative targets because it's Friday, and this actually lines up even with the aggressive decently. But this will pull in a bit. But on a breakdown below 39.80.25 on the open, 39.68, 39.62, 39.55.75. That's to the downside. The minor levels, because we could be, unless we get some real interesting numbers with that flash, with the PMI flash, we could get into some choppier trading today. If we have a choppy upside, we'll take a look at the VIX too. Above yesterday's high, 4,475, 4,015, then the major cluster area of 4,025 to 4,028. So there we have a roadmap going into the open. I love when that happens. Now remember, we have this upward channel and downward sloping trend line just above here. That's why I'd focus first on a breakout move at that 4,015 area. Okay, and then we have the strong cluster at that 4,025 to 4,028. And if it blows through there to the upside, next area I'm using is 4,060 to 75% harmonic. If we break down and we break through those double targets, my next major support is 39.32. Let's see who else is here. Good morning, Josh. Good morning, George. Today, Nasdaq green or red? Isn't that the question? Just be careful. Right now, we are at, with the S&P, I love how people just ask green or red like there's some major predictive thing. S&P at cycle tops. Since you asked about the Nasdaq, let's switch to the Nasdaq now. Nasdaq also at cycle tops. So this is where we get to be cautious. Also, if we are up for the day, watch for profit taking after this pretty big run up for the last 3 days. Could be 4 days today. I'm still leaning for the upside unless we have that breakdown play on the open. Okay? I'm still leaning slightly to the upside. I think it would be choppier. No double yet on the Nasdaq. You'd need it to push it above 12,621 before, well, it can even push above there on the open, but then you'd need that breakdown below this low. So it's no official double yet. If it's no official double and it were to break down, your major target would roughly be about 12,409. If it is, then you're going to have to use, the right side. If it pushes above this 12,622.25, then do your harmonics on this right side and use those targets going lower. All right, you can't use that, but that would be the first sign. If you want to know if we're red or green, the first big hint is if we break down below about 12,524. To the upside, Again, we are still cycles going up, but nearing toppy patterns. That's why it's not as easier to answer today, because we're at the potential rollover zone. So a break above 12,655, 12,690, 12,725. And then what do we have? 12,798, so 12,800. Where does that put us? Oops, come on. I'm sorry, it's a little finicky with this new setup. I'd actually go in front of that 12,800. I go 12,800. I'd use that definitely for today. If it does blow through there, then your next key area would be, before that's 12,941, would be 12,891. Now your major support, if we break down, especially below 12,455, your major support coming in about 12,350. Let's peek at the VIX real quick. VIX 2295. What's interesting is 2342 was, never mind about that. What's interesting is about 24 still. 2370 to 24 is your key resistance. So as long as we don't really pop much above, I'm going to say 2355. As long as it stays below 2355, I will stay in choppy to bullish mode. All right. If we continue to roll over and press lower, 22.95, could somebody punch in the real-time VIX since this is delayed? We're into, there's no more real stopping points until it gets down to 2028. So we could still see some follow through the downside for next week. And we did break below key support becoming resistance and below the 200 simple. So there's some overhead resistance still in here that has to be really blown through, especially next week, before I really start tipping to more a bearish mode. And we don't have a significant topping pattern also. Remember, that little double on the S&P 1 hour is a 1 hour double, which would just be for a minor pullback. This is not a major topping pattern. It is a sort of a wedging pattern going up, so we could get a correction, but there's no significant topping pattern here. Generally, when we have this kind of price action, we push up, we get a reaction. Then the secondary reaction is how we start gauging for the rollover. Because the secondary reaction could make a double top. The secondary reaction could die out between the 50 and the 62.5 harmonic. And then we can really start targeting our rollover play. Generally, you don't get crash spike tops. Like here, last time rollover, it gave us some pausing, and then we could assess it. Then we got the rollover play. Pausing, then the rollover play. We had a brief pause on Wednesday, but follow through on Thursday. Now we're getting the potentially pausing play again today, but you rarely get just a massive red bar, especially without much news today and only your PMI flash. Dow's just edging up again. Next major target area is 32,345. Minor target is 32,185. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the Dow. We got some other stuff to get through. 31,871 is minor support. Major support is 31,657. Russell, just going to take a peek at the Russell. My next target is 1850 essentially, and minor support coming in about 1829. Major support about 1815. The DAX. Again, we've had that double trigger stalling out at the first target. DAX trying to push higher. This is now turning into a triple topping pattern. So I'm still watching for some follow through with the target of 13,438 on the DAX. Crude, again, another attempted pullback, bouncing off the 62.5 area again today. I don't even think that's a double, but I just have to map that out. That does work. So remember, we're still in bullish mode, slight bullish mode with a potential push higher. The stop level is on a daily close below 97.47. But you break above 97.95, and then we got 96.70 essentially and 150. Ignore that final target because then I'd just be back into the bigger double. So we have a double within a double play. But that second double has not triggered yet. And remember, the primary double is stopped. Or if we turn around and dive down, any trade below 93.17 takes this other double off the table. Remember, you have to know up and down where it is. Natty Gas hit full targets. It hit full targets. And what do you do after it hit full targets if you remain in bullish mode, especially with the close above 62.5? Little thing, why do I like to take this off? And this, remember, hit the 62.5. I bumped down the target before, but then it hit the target on this breakout play. We've got the close above the 62.5, so we still should favor some higher prices. Next target is 855. That's where you do a pullback play, like the pullback to the rotation zone, especially on the 4 hours with cycles at the bottom. Gold. Watching for the secondary reaction now. Remember, I was talking about a potential longer-term bottom. Now going to watch for this pullback move. Pullback move on gold. That's what I'm keying off of now. We've got that first reaction in the daily rotation zone. Now, this is, as I said, topping patterns don't happen with V-shaped reversals. Bottoming patterns somewhat do, but it's more rare in gold. Cycles at the top, that's why I'm watching for a rollover play, and then we can assess a bottoming pattern. And then we have the better play, the secondary reaction coming up in gold. Notes, we finally got that follow through. Remember to break out above this 118.30 area. Then the next target, 119.23. I'm watching for overall now to this retest, not necessarily today, because this is already a substantial move, but retest this high area of about 120.08 to 120.18, and then the follow through roll into the bigger inverse head and shoulders. You can start seeing it forming now. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder. So that's where we sit there. Dollar index still caught in the range. We talked about that with Bob, especially yesterday. 107.31 is the breakout play. The breakdown play for the pullback to the weekly rotation zone would be 106.23. Other than for me, it's sitting on the hands with the dollar index because we could still have this reset to the weekly rotation zone if we get that breakdown play and then the next rotation back up, which then we gauge if we're making a longer term topping pattern. Already looked at the VIX. Let's see. I don't understand. How can you tell when it's valid? Sorry, I can't see all the double bottom, head and shoulder, but I never know when to enter. Well, if you want the conservative entries, it's always based off a closing price. For a head and shoulder, the closing price would be above the neckline. So if this was the neckline, this would be a closing price above the neckline. For a double, like the crude, the conservative entry is always the closing price. The aggressive entry is a break. All right, so we had this double bottom right here, or sorry, this head and shoulder. This was a head and shoulder on crude. This was the close above the neckline. For a double, this would be the double. It would be a close above 97.95. If you're trying to play a breakout above there, then you have to then assess if it can't close above there, it's a scratch trade or a minor loss trade. Bitcoin pausing here. Again, we're getting the rotation back up. So if the Nasdaq stays strong, the next target is this 24,975 to 25K to the upside, and that's before the next big rollover. Just seeing what else we have here. Let's see. They 28.88. So again, watch that 23.50 area. Twitter blaming Elon for earnings miss. Twitter isn't good. Where are they blaming Elon? Because I don't think they're doing much talking about this because of the lawsuit and everything going on. I didn't see where they were blaming it. I wouldn't be doing that if I was Twitter. There are lots of VIX 40 calls, 40 plus calls for October expiry, which is not surprising because when do you get the potentially big moves? Now it's still cheap insurance. And you get the potentially big moves in September, October, especially in September. I've seen a lot of 40 plus calls. Yeah, there you go. Strategy Freeman. Open interest on VIX 40 or above all-time highs. What do you make of that? It again, for the longer term expiries, it's going into more volatility after the summer with cheap insurance. But buying it now in case we get a downdraft sooner, but really we could see some continued choppy to higher price action, even with a pullback for the rest of the summer. Euro USD 4-hour double top. That's really, it turned right here into, that's slop. Let me see the daily. No, that's two. Nope. That's just a breakdown and rollover play. That's a mess. You can't use the target, so you're it's already bounced off the first target. What's really interesting is if this rolls over again, watch for a retest of 101.20 area, and then you're into as nearly an advanced clear path move. So don't play that as a double. Just play the breakout zone would be 101, a buck 80. So 100.80, and then you'd be playing for a retest of this low area. Let me pull this off real quick. I want to go to the other harmonics. Yeah, this area right in here is going to be key on the next rollover play. a buck 73 to a buck 80 right in here because you get the close below that. Then you favor the lows. Right now, this is just a horrible, sloppy breakdown pattern with this double hitch and then this move, and there's just too much back and forth in there, and it's not valid. Check the higher time frame, and if you can't see it on the higher time frame, well, I can't see it at all in a daily with a double, then it's don't bother on that lower time frame. It's a little tip. If you look to the higher one and it's just a mess, then don't bother. Let's see, top of the morning, Lauren. Inverse head and shoulder on XLV. And not with this, no. And it's not reversing enough of a move, so no. Remember, inverse head and shoulder is a reversal. This invalidates it right there. You're still playing for higher prices based off of this. It almost hit that 82.5, but again, I covered this in the, it spiked up here. I'm watching for a retest this area, 132.10. It didn't quite hit that 87.5. And cycles aren't at the top. So I just, at this point, if you want something intraday, it'd be the breakout play about above 130.80. XBI, which I don't cover, but it is valid for the biotech ETF. It's above the 62.5, so the next targets, the upside I'd be using is 88.39 and then overall 92.90. And that's not even short term. You could get some pullback moves. That's for the next little push up in biotech, especially with the declining 200. Let me check in on that weekly though. And it's above the weekly rotation zone now, so I'd really be focused longer term on the push through the next couple months back to that 92.88. Joe, you think, is that Joka, or how do you say your name? Let me know. I don't want to mispronounce names, and I'm horrible at names. But welcome to the channel. You think it's going to be all red. Coco thinks September new low. Is it possible to look like DVN SQM? Sure. Thanks for being here, Raj. Oh, you got your double that already hit the first stop reduction target. So your next two targets, and they're, oh, that's really, I bumped that one down slightly, like about 60-50. But I'd be watching, you know, cycles are at the top, so it's not, you know, it's still valid. Let me check the weeklies. As long as weeklies are at the bottom. So, you know, as long as this holds, your stop level, you got that upside, you know, in the upper 60%. So as long as you don't hit the daily close below about 52.25, you're fine. Or the spike down play below 51.14, you're fine with some more upside, especially to retest that 50. And so that would be short, and you got some pretty significant resistance up there. Cycles trying to edge higher, coming out of overbought, so that's still a valid upside play. SQM, that's pretty nice. Breaking above there, your next target, let's see. Nice little breakout play. No, no, you can't trade that really as a double. This was, let me see here on the 4 hour. Just looking here, sorry, just focused. Actually, I'd be watching for your overhead resistance. Your major overhead resistance is coming in at 94.51. On a continued rally, especially in that area, I'd watch for a pause and a slight pullback, and a pullback could be a re-entry then for higher prices. I'd be watching for the pullback to this prior, not today, but over the next few days, 89.25 area to possibly a little higher on a pullback play, especially if it stalls out. You got a fair amount of overhead resistance right in this area with daily cycles at the top, but weeklies at the bottom. Watch for a little pullback, then another push higher. Apple reaching top at 156.50. Now, see, we don't have a redraw of that wedge yet. Apple top, I'd be more focused on about 158.50. And then the next area would be 161. With this, I'm going to pull this wedge out for now since it broke out to the upside. Actually, we're not going to go into that. It's going to get too complex to get into this morning. Your next area, again, you're between this rotation zone. So the next key area on the continued push higher with Apple, remember, earnings are coming out on the 28th. So that is next week. But you still have room to run. I'd be really focused on this 200 to about about 158.50 to 160. I would not make the target before then. You have a minor breakdown zone right here, but you plow through that. I'd be going there. You're welcome, Christoph. Apple weekly double hit the final target, or still the Apple weekly double. Again, I'm watching for some. That's from back here. I'll have to put those targets on again. But no, we still have low. I'm still watching for lower overall prices on the next rollover move with Apple. But right now we have this double that looks like it could trigger this morning, which you could still get Apple pushing higher over the next few weeks. Got to play the probabilities. And if Apple does, Apple can always pull something out of their rear with earnings. So unless we close back below, unless we have a pretty substantial sell-off today and close back below and don't trigger this on the weekly, I got to stay in short-term bullish mode, at least on Apple. BA is at the second double bottom target on the weekly. Cycles are pegged. Would you expect a rollover before continuing to the third target? Hey, Sterling, welcome. Not VA. BA. Cycles are pegged, overbought condition. Would I expect a rollover? Wow, you got cycles at the top everywhere. It could eat. I'd just move up my stop. Again, can I predict if this is going to roll over? We are at the area it could roll over, but you still have a magnet for that gap up there. So this would just be a raise the stop for the final target with the gap. Now, I would not crowd the stop, but again, even if it pulled back to the daily rotation zone, if the market does stay strong, it could easily hit that level. So that would be the way I handle that, is a trail a stop out, especially since this is take partial profits and raise a stop again. That's this part of the strategy. So you raise your stop. And you don't actually want it closing below about 147.50. Why that level? This is the prior, if you forget the double, this is prior support, retested right here, retested with this emotional candle closing price, another emotional candle closing price, the pullback with the close there, and then an emotional candle pull away to hit the double target. So that's your key level. So as long as you don't have a close below there, got to stay in, especially with it back above the weekly rotation zone. So even on a pullback, got to stay in short-term bullish mode. All right, we're at the open. I'm sorry I went over. Let me just check in at this. Nasdaq, the little bigger pullback than the Dow, but don't overreact unless the Nasdaq. Let's just see where we sit with this. No double yet. So again, I can't get bearish until it trades below there. Just sloppy right now. And the S&P, little spike high, but that does not invalidate the double. So again, can't get overly bearish until below 39.80. Let's check in again. The VIX is delayed, so I need the updated data from somebody else because don't stream my trading platform. You are welcome. Nasdaq going down. It's down minorly. Again, don't overreact until things get below a key level. This is a very minor reaction at the open. All right, with that, everyone, thanks for being here. I got to wrap it up to position some things, and I will chat with everyone after the close. Bye for now.